got him, you got him. Tell somebody, tell them. Tell somebody and tell them that I got him, I got him. If you know that you got him, you ought not be ashamed. I refuse to let the rock cry out for me. I'll give him the praise. Give him the praise. Good God Almighty now.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Sutton. I am the take a chance. into the ICU and they can't inform us of anything. They're not able to, for whatever reason that might be. Um, we have in our records, hopefully, the emergency contact from possibly another hospitalization. Sometimes, and this is where it's really important, we'll have a person that appears to the hospital and says, well, I'm their fiance, or I'm their significant other, or I'm their best friend. And while that person may be the one that the patient would want to make medical decisions for us, legally, we can't just do that. If a person, and this is why it's important to get your medical power of attorney completed, is that if you don't have a document that specifies who you want to make medical decisions for you when you're not able to, then it goes to the Texas order of authority of who then can make those decisions for you. So it's first a spouse. If a person is divorced or they don't have a spouse, a divorced spouse doesn't count. Um, then it goes to adult children. And then if there's no adult children, it goes to parents. And then it goes to siblings. And then further down the road, it kind of goes to the nearest living relative. And that becomes my job then to find out who are these people in this person's family that is legally okay for me to call and say your loved one is in the hospital. So it becomes very important. And it's important once a person is 18 to know that. Now, a lot of times when someone, and I'm really glad to see younger people here because you need to have a medical directive. So let me kind of go back to the very beginning of what my two directives are, really the two. I put in a third, but we're not going to go into that too much. So I talked about the medical power of attorney. And that document, what Melanie passed out to you is the hospital packet that I give a patient if they're interested, or if they tell a nurse or someone that they'd like to know about it, then I will come and give them that information. And I put together questions that I normally get. So it's just kind of a question and answer in the first few pages. My number, if you have any, if the person or if you have any questions. And then the two documents are in the back. And they are the Texas documents. They're not Seton Medical Hospital documents. Okay, so they're good anywhere in the country. So the first document which I started to talk about is the medical power of attorney. And the sole purpose of that document is to have down in writing your, there's another folder there, yeah, your preferences of who you want for a primary medical decision maker, and then you can choose two alternates if we're not able to get a hold of that first person. Their purpose, and they only have the authority to carry out what your wishes would be or what they believe your wishes would be. So along with the document, it's also really important to talk to your family or whomever you decide to have to be this person. Tell them what you want. And it doesn't have to just be when I'm dying. It might be, you know, I know personally, and from my experience, I do not ever want to be put on dialysis. And some people here may be on dialysis. It's a lifesaver. But I know for myself, I I just don't want that, even if it's temporary. So if I'm in a situation where I can't talk for myself and I'm in kidney failure, and the doctors need to know, can I put her on dialysis, even if it's temporary? My medical power of attorney knows that person can tell them she does not ever want that. And uh, that's that person's role. Sometimes it's not so clear because there's so many things that can happen to us, so many different illnesses that can happen, even if we're just, healthy. Um, and then we get a bad pneumonia or, what we experienced with COVID. Suddenly people who were healthy were in a position of the doctors asking, would we can't get this person off of life sustaining treatment, meaning the ventilator that helps them breathe, or the medication that helps keep their blood pressure up so it doesn't drop on them. And so family members were kind of forced to think, would my loved one want to be like this for a month at a time, possibly not being able to come off of it. It can be it's very invasive. It can be very uncomfortable. You can't communicate with your loved one because they're sedated. So it's difficult decisions. So what we do in those types of situations is I talk with different family members. I first find the medical power of attorney or the legal decision maker. And then I form a conference just for the physicians to talk with family, and I'm present to to just talk about it. What is this person's life like? What are they like? What would be a quality of life for them? What would be an absolute zero quality of life for them? And then we help the loved ones to make the best decisions for the patient. So I hope I'm not getting too quickly into the medical side. And if I have gotten too much into any terminology that you're like, "No, I'm not quite sure what that means," please feel free to ask. But that is to stay on track with the directives, that medical power of attorney, that's the sole purpose of the document. I want to add that you don't have to have family as your decision maker. I don't have any, I have one family member on my medical power of attorney, and she's the third. I have two good friends who are in healthcare. One is a nurse, one is a retired chaplain. And they know me very well. So don't think that, and there's no law in Texas. Many people think that it's still a law that the eldest child should be the decision maker. And that is not, just delete that from your thinking. Your eldest child may be your most sensitive child, and you wouldn't want to put that person in that position. So you want to think about, who is someone that cares for me, that loves me, that knows me well enough to know what I would want in a life-saving situation, or just overall, and is kind of level-headed, because it's going to be a difficult time, and choose that person. And then your alternates might be a family member. Now, just because you haven't chosen a family member doesn't mean that they cannot be part of the discussion. You can put that in your document. I want this person to make a decision with these other two. I don't want my family to get too involved. It's totally up to you. It's your document. But to tell you the truth, I've never seen that. But they will be brought into the conversation. So they won't be left out. They just won't be able to say, well, I don't believe that. I want you to do this. They can't do that. They don't have the authority to do that. Going forward to the next one, the directive to physicians and family. This document used to be called the living will. So sometimes people don't know what, when I say directive to physicians and family members, then when I say living will, they understand it. I want to make very, very clear to you all, and I have to address this in the hospital with nurses all the time. It's a constant education. This document is not a DNR. Does anyone know what a DNR is? Do not resuscitate. That is an order that is discussed with you and your physician when you come into the hospital. Or if you can't, then your medical power of attorney will say, I know that he or she wants to be full code or wants to be a DNR code. So full code, everybody comes into the hospital and it's assumed they are a full code unless told otherwise. And a full code means that if your heart were to stop or if you were to stop breathing, they would immediately put a ventilator down your throat that breathes for you. Sometimes it's just to protect your airway. A person is not conscious enough and concerned about will they just be able to breathe enough on their own. So they put that life-sustaining equipment to protect you, to just keep you breathing and making sure that you're getting enough oxygen. If your heart stops, they're going to do CPR. CPR is a very assaultive procedure. Nurses would say, we have to assault this person. So it's not what you see on TV where they go, and then the person wakes up. It's a nurse getting up on a stool on top of the person, male, female, with all of their weight, doing this to your chest. And the purpose of that, believe it or not, is to break your sternum bones so that they can get to your heart, excuse me, and start massaging it through that process. And they now have a machine that often people will come in the ambulance and that machine is strapped to the person and it's doing just that. So when someone is elderly, or maybe they've really gone through a lot of difficult physical illness and they're fragile or they're weak, and they come in and have that CPR done, that can be very damaging to them. CPR is not something that it may get the heart back, but there still is damage that happens in the body. And the number one damage is no breath, and not enough oxygen, excuse me, not just breath, but oxygen getting to the brain, and part of the brain becomes damaged and can even die, depending how long it takes. So DNR, do not resuscitate, is you're saying, I don't want that process done to me. Okay? So if you fill out your directives and your directive to your physicians and family, now that's directed and focuses on a person's, as the legal language, they have to put a time frame around it. And they say a person's in their last 6 months of life. what kind of treatment do you want to have at that end stage of your life? Do you want to continue aggressive treatment? There's no judgment. It's completely up to each individual. You want life-sustaining treatment, which means you want that ventilator in helping you to breathe. You want all the medications that keep your blood pressure up, take care of whatever your body needs to keep it going, even though you know that that's not going to turn your health around. Or you can make a decision that when it comes to that time in my life, I don't want all of that aggressive treatment. I just want to be made comfortable. I want to be taken care of by hospital treatment, but I want to be comfortable and be able to die a natural death when my time is ready. Um, that's the purpose of that document. So it doesn't have anything to do with whether a person is a full code status or a do not resuscitated status. The way that this document can help is if your loved ones and your physician, the medical team has your directive and they're looking at it, and let's say it says that you want to be able to die a natural death, then if they're in a position where you can't tell them what you want, and the doctors are really concerned because they can tell by the tests and the monitors, they're really concerned that you're going to lose your heartbeat. You could lose it pretty soon. And they go to your loved one and say, do you want us to do CPR or not? Well, that's a lot of pressure on the loved one at that time. If you have this document done, that person can say, well, he or she wants to be able to die a natural death. Then that lets that physician and that healthcare team know what you want, that you don't want to go through the hardship, most likely, of going through a resuscitation. So it can be helpful with that, but it's just really important to me because it gets confusing for the healthcare staff. I'm up. About the DNR. So that's perfect timing to go into any questions because I've just kind of loaded a bunch of information on you. Any questions? So can I pop quiz you? Um, let's do this. Tell me your name again. Sharon. You come in as a patient and you are really ill. You've just got the flu and possibly pneumonia, and you cannot talk or even think because your head is just ready to explode. And I see that on your emergency contact list, it says that you have a significant other. And so I need to find out if your breathing gets worse, do you want to have a ventilator? And so I ask you and you can't tell me. Is it okay for me to call your significant other and ask for permission for that?
It's on a document that I have already signed. So, so no, because I haven't legally said that I could utilize that person.
But I would say that's her significant other has put down. I'm going to call that person and say that you're here. And do they know you're here? And is there a family member that I can call? Because that's following, I have to follow the law on that. If that person says, well, she has a medical power of attorney, let me bring it in, bingo, we've got all the answers we need. Does anybody have any questions about how a DNR code status works and how the advanced directive, the directive to physicians and family work? Any, just questions about the differences or similarities or anything like that? No? Okay. Let me just say, do you have a question? Okay.
Thank you for the information. My name is Sandy. And my question is, a lot of what I understood you to explain has to do with documentation that may be on file with my physician. But what if something happens to me in my home and the EMR has to come um, and maybe my heart has, I seem to have stopped breathing or whatever. They don't have access to this information, right? So in the case when it happens outside of a hospital setting, could you explain that, please?
I meant to do that. And so thank you for reminding me. Did everybody hear her? Okay. Excellent question. So the third document that Melanie brought up, and I didn't bring it with me because I had a typo in my bio that I sent to her that I just caught yesterday. The out of hospital DNR is the third healthcare directive, and that is a physician's order. My bio said it's not. It is the one document out of these three that is a physician's order. So you fill it out, you can fill it out with the doctor at the hospital or your primary care physician. And that is the only document that will keep an emergency medical professional, and that includes ambulance or ER, from doing CPR on you if you come in and you're not breathing or your heart stopped. If you have an advanced directive that, remember, that's not a DNR, if that says you don't want life-sustaining treatment, that's not going to stop them. Remember, that's the procedure that it's talking about. DNR is the procedure. So if you don't want that done, you can talk with your physician. You can even do it if you're in the hospital and you can tell your physician, I don't want this done when I leave the hospital. Then we can fill it out in the hospital and I take care of it. I get the physician's signature, I get your signature or a loved one's signature for you if you need that. And then you keep that with you. You keep that at home, openly visible. You keep it on your person if you can. Now, women, we were talking about it's difficult for women because if you keep something in your purse or wallet and something happens outside your home, the emergency technicians are only concerned about you. They're not concerned about your belongings. So a lot of times the purse doesn't get taken with it. So I haven't figured that out yet. How can we, the old fashioned pin it to your bra is the only thing I can think of. But yeah, we don't want to go there. But that's if someone goes to another facility, let's say for rehab, and they're well enough, certainly, to work on getting stronger before they go home. But their condition is such, or they just do not want to be resuscitated if something were to happen, then that document goes to the facility with you. So that's a separate piece. It's a physician's order, out of hospital, do not resuscitate. And that's something that when you're in the hospital, if you bring it up, In the hospitals, different interdisciplinary people do the advanced directives. Wherever I've ever been, it's been the chaplain, which I was always really glad to do because we're talking about mortality. And so just, or not having control at some point in your life. And so a lot of issues can come up. So we talk about different things and we get these documents. I help you with the documents. Some hospitals will have the social worker or a case manager do it, but we're all working on the same things. So we would work with you to help you in the hospital to get the out of hospital DNR. Okay, thank you for bringing that up because I forgot. I have my number. What I'd like you to do is kind of go through the questions and answers that I have in the packet and fill it out, maybe fill it out in pencil. Because once you see it down in front of you, you might say, maybe I want so-and-so, you want to change it around. Or fill it out, and if you have to scratch it up or whatever, get a hold of me. You can get these off of the internet, but I've got plenty at the hospital. If you have questions and you want to, give me a call and we can make an appointment or we can just talk on the phone and I can talk through the documents with you. You don't have to have either of these two notarized. You fill them out and you have two witnesses watch you sign them. They just can't be family members and they can't be the people you've appointed. So it could be your friends. You could do it here at the end of the day. And then what you want to do with the documents is give them to your physician, your dentist, any specialist you go to, cardiologist, rheumatologist, anybody, dialysis. And then when you come to the hospital, whichever hospital, if you come the first time, let's say it's just for lab tests, bring it in and ask them to put it on your medical record. Then it will always be in the hospital system. One thing that I wanted to let you know is a lot of times people will say, well, I turned it into Scott and White. And we share information. Doctors will have access to your information. For some reason, it's really hard to get a person's advance directive from another hospital. I'm still working on it. I don't understand why. But so a lot of times people will say, well, or the VA, that they just don't they don't give out any information, which is protective for anyone who's in the VA, but it's hard on our side. So just, but you don't have to come into the emergency room or for a main crisis. You can just come in for lab work and give it to the hospital to put it on your record. Okay. Melanie, did you say that when are we going to be available to people for more questions? Is it after the whole day? Okay. Well, but I can come back. I didn't realize you were going to do that. So I will come back and then if you have any questions as you've kind of thought about it, I'm happy to help you with it. Thank you all for your attention and for being here. It's so important.
So first, we have a small gift for you. We want to thank you for coming and sharing your knowledge with us. It is very valuable information that we all need to know as not even for seasoned or older, wiser individuals, but for everyone as they are going through the course of their lives. So thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Hi, good morning. My apologies, I did not come up and introduce myself. My name is Alnisha Pemberton. I am one of the chairmen over the mental health and our seniors portion of one of the international programs that we are currently implementing under our current administration. So I appreciate everyone, both sorority members and community members, for coming out this morning. We started off on a good foot. So I am now going to be introducing Mr. Adrian Robertson. He is a life insurance agent with Globe Life, which is the official life insurance company of the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers. He is going into his third year there as a general manager. He's passionate about educating young adults and marginalized groups on the importance of life insurance and helping them protect their family's legacy. He graduated from Northwestern State University in Louisiana, where his major was general studies. And he spent most of his life as an athlete prior to getting into life insurance. So if we will give a warm welcome, Mr. Adrian Robertson.
How y'all doing? Perfect. I want to first say thank you to Miss Melanie for, hold on, let me take a deep breath. All right, cool. I want to say thank you to Melanie for having me here. It's a pleasure to be able to educate you all on life insurance. All right. So again, my name is Adrian. I'm a general manager with Globe Life American Income. I've been in the financial service industry going on 3 years. I'll be a managing director towards the end of this year. Okay. So pretty much, I want to first off say that I know life insurance and what we're talking about can be a very sensitive topic. I'm very empathetic for all of my families that I sit down with. So I want you all to know that I understand I've lost loved ones as well. And with that being said, most people think life insurance is you can only benefit from it upon someone's death, right? Which is not true. All right, so we're gonna talk about that. That's why we're here today. First off, I want to start off by asking, by a show of hands, how many of you all have heard of life insurance? Everybody, right? Yeah, sure. All right. So with that being said, by a show of hands, how many of you understand how life insurance works? Uh, that was a good question. That was a good question. All right, cool. I got to loosen up. All right, so perfect. So with that being said, most of us have life insurance through work, right? If not everybody, some of us, we have life insurance through work. And life, life insurance through work is great, right? First off, let me ask you this. Were you all aware that life insurance through work is backed by a group policy, right? So group policy simply means that once you choose to retire, you choose to change jobs, or you get a better opportunity, right? You're basically those benefits are tied to your employment, okay? So what that means, so basically what it looks like, essentially everybody is paying money to a bucket, right? You're paying money into a bucket. You get a better opportunity, or let's say you decide to retire, or COVID-19 crisis, unemployment, right? Everybody's unemployed. So now, just like the money, you leave those benefits behind. Okay, does that make sense? Now, with that being said, very rarely that they're going to give you the option. They're going to give you the option to take that policy with you. So you can take that policy with you, but only at a group life rate, right? So when it's taken at a group life rate, it's much more expensive that way. All right. So with that being said, you know, I don't know how much a group life rate is. All right. So everybody is just taking out of your paycheck every paycheck, right? It's just taking out, taking out, taking out. So it's really important and it's very important to understand why we must educate ourselves why life insurance is important to have life insurance outside of work through a private company. All right. So with that being said, I want to ask y'all this. there's two types of life insurance, right? And I'm gonna pick on one person. I'll pick on someone, but by a show of hands, what two types of life insurance does anybody know what two types of life insurance there is? Go ahead. Term and whole. Y'all short, man. Y'all should come work for me. I'm high. All right. All right. So with that being said, there's term life and there's whole life. All right. Now, I know some of y'all got y'all pens and papers out. You know, I typically sit down with a lot of pens out. I say, write this down. All right. So underneath, I want you all to write down whole life versus, well, not versus term life, whole life and term life. Okay. Now, underneath whole life, I want you to write down is with you for your what? Whole life. Exactly. So write down underneath whole life is it's gonna be with you for your whole life, entire life. All right. Now also underneath term life, I want you all to think of it as a president serving a term. Right. So with that being said, when once his term is up, he's no longer the what? President, right? So you're no longer insured. Okay, so with that being said, term life policies vary anywhere from 5 years to 30 years. Okay. Now, also, let me ask y'all this: have y'all ever heard of the saying that life insurance is based off of your age and health? Heard of that? Right. So what that means is the older you get, the more expensive it becomes. Not only that, the riskier it is to obtain, right? So with that being said, term life, term life, term life is there's two main reasons for term life and that most people benefit from is income protection and mortgage protection. Okay. Now, income protection is to replace one's income for which is the recommended amount of years is 5 years. Okay, so that's to replace one's income. All right, so what that looks like, let's say we have, let's say we have Mary. Mary is a single mom with a 7-year-old daughter. She lists Keisha as her beneficiary, right? Her sister as a beneficiary, right? Mary's very hardworking. She's a mail workers postal union. Uh, it's not likely that she'll lose her life, but she does drive in a mail carrier van every single day, right? So, with that being said, Mary loses her life at work. Okay, so now Keisha, her beneficiary, is now responsible for her daughter. Okay, now what that looks like now, Keisha is now responsible for the upbringing of her niece. So she has to provide for her financially, let's say with food on the table, school supplies, clothes on the back, things like that. So what income protection provides for for Keisha now is 5 years of Miss Mary's income or 5 years of Mary's income. Okay, and she can choose to get that in the form of, a lump sum, or she can get it in a once a month paycheck every single month. So that gives Keisha and the daughter time to adjust emotionally and financially as well. Does that make sense? Follow? Cool. So perfect. So now I'm gonna use another example. So that's an example of how it'll benefit you if you were to lose your life within that term. Okay. So let's say we got Jim. Jim is a meal rights worker. I keep using unions because we're a private company, so we do benefits for unions. So Joe, he's a millwright worker. All right. He has a really dangerous job. Um, he's likely to lose his life if at work, if anything were to take place. So Joe, at 30 years old, he decided to get income protection. Okay. It's a 30-year term. All right. Joe makes it through the millwrights union. He's retired. He worked well. Now, after he retires at 60 years old, so now that term life policy is no longer instated, I would say. It's no longer, right? It's time to renew, okay? Simple terms, it's time to renew, right? But with that being said, we all know that term life is based off of what? Your age and health. So come time for Joe to renew his policy at 60 years old, it's going to be based off of the age that he is now and the health that he is currently. Okay. So with that being said, Joe is all right because at 30 years old, Joe also decided to enroll in whole life coverage. Okay. So Joe has two decisions, right? He can renew the term life policy that served him well during his working years. Okay, he could choose to renew it, or he can say, "Hey, I'm not going to renew my term life policy. I have my whole life policy that is locked in at the price and the rate that it was when I enrolled when I was 30." Okay, so that's the benefit of term. When it comes to mortgage, essentially, it's going to pay out the remaining balance of your mortgage, or whatever amount that you chose to have pay out, and it's going to be paid out towards the lender, not to the beneficiary. Okay. So now I would like to move on to whole life. Is there any questions about term? Well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. So now I want to move. I want to move over to whole life. All right. So whole life has living benefits. Okay. Most people, again, we all think that in order to benefit from life insurance, we have to, it has to be upon someone's death. So as opposed to term life, whole life coverage grows cash value. Okay. And it grows cash value, which means that, if you were to ever get into a financial bind, this day we have many people using whole life policies to protect themselves against taxes. So they're also using it to fund their endeavors or dreams or whatever it may be. Okay. So if you ever chose to pull from that policy, you can. All right. Now, also whole life coverage. Also, what I'll say about whole life coverage is that you are locking in a price and a premium at your age and health. Okay. So what that means is if you were to get a policy, just like Joe, if you were to get a policy when you were 25 years old, you decided to get a $25,000 policy. Obviously, it's much cheaper to get that policy when you're younger. It's about, say, about 40 bucks, right? So now, let's say we're 50, we're up in age, we're still going to be paying 40 bucks for a $25,000 whole life policy. That makes sense. Now, what I want to be very informative when it comes to life insurance because it's simple, right? Most people, the reason why life insurance could be complex if you don't understand the difference between whole and term. All right, each serves their purpose. So obviously, you want to get term life coverage when you're working. Okay, there's no need for a senior to have a whole life policy because more than likely 9 times out of 10 they're retired. Okay, so there's no reason to pay a term life policy. Okay, as opposed to a young adult with a family, some dependents. This person lose their life, then this is going to supplement for the loss of their income, right? Let me see if I cover it. All right, got you. So there's a couple types of whole life policies. I don't want to confuse you all. So there's a couple types of whole life policies. One is called an a universal whole life policy. So that's a policy that mirrors the S&P 500. Okay, that's the market. So these are policies that people typically use when they want to protect their cash, right? Protect against income taxes. It has death benefits. It has living benefits. It also has basically it's a saving. You're your own bank. Okay, you're your own bank. So with that being said, both of these policies, all types, any type of whole life policy, it grows cash value. All right. And back to what I was saying. So most people get confused or consider life insurance confusing when they just don't understand the truth. Okay, so there's whole life, there's term life, there's final expense policies, which is also a whole life. Final expense policy is specifically for final expenses to take care of the burial and whatnot of that nature. Any remaining amount of that money will go to the beneficiary at same day cash. What? How am I looking at? All right, it's all good. So let me do this. Does anyone have a question in regards to whole life and term life, or what it looks like to enroll? Mhm, mhm.
So if you are in your retirement range of age and you don't have whole life set up, is it terribly expensive to get it set up? Um, like with, to start, is it worthwhile to start at that point? And my other question is long-term life insurance available anymore? Is that an option?
Whole life, yes.
Oh,
So-
well, and long-term care insurance is more of what I'm thinking of, like that helps people if they have to go into an assisted living or have, elderly expenses for
Mhm.
life. And long-term care used to cover that. Is that an option
Mhm.
anymore?
Oh, that's great question. Thank you. Um, with that being said, I'm gonna answer the first question. Is it terribly expensive? So it depends on the amount of coverage that that one gets, right? Um, I'm gonna talk about a senior blackout period. Have y'all heard of that before? Senior blackout period. Okay, got you. So when it comes to being, when it comes to coming upon retirement age, it is a little more expensive to get life insurance, but it also depends on how much coverage you get. So you would have to ask yourself, are you willing to set aside $100 or $125 every month, or pay $125 towards to the life insurance policy? So most people are not responsible enough to set aside $125 and not touch it. So that's when it comes into play. If you're going to be responsible enough to set your money to the side to take care of your funeral and final arrangements, but yet again, that policy is not, the money that you're setting aside is not going to cash value. Makes sense. So, yes, yeah. So either setting aside in the bank or but let's say if you are getting a whole life, well, I'm just saying in general. So you either choose to get the whole life policy, okay, or you just put the money into a bank or put the money in savings, wherever you want to put money, right? Um, you can choose to do that, but most people aren't responsible to set aside, $125 every month. So that's why life insurance comes into effect. So to answer the long term, basically healthcare is what you were asking about, right? Long term, care. Yeah, yeah. I'm not familiar with that. Yeah, I haven't heard of anything like that. I don't know if that's, and that was always tied to like life insurance. Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah. No, I don't have an answer on that one. Mm, gotcha. Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Anyone has any other questions? Right here. Yeah, I can pass the mic around. I'm move around a little bit.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jackie. My name is Jackie, and I am semi-retired. And can you explain to especially our younger generation the importance of knowing what a life insurance is? Because when I was a young soldier many moons ago, got life insurance because it was like quick to talking. I didn't fully understand, but I knew that once I moved somewhere else, oh, I got money in the bank or that I could pull out from my life insurance. But the disadvantage was like, okay, I got to pay all this money back. So yeah, so the the younger generation needs to know the importance of knowing what life insurance is, knowing what type of life insurance to get, and don't get caught up of you seeing this money and saying, oh, that's I can get that to borrow.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. So great question. Statement with, so to piggyback on that, right? You can choose to pay that policy back. Now, if you do choose to pay it back, there are interest rates that comes about that. So obviously, if you, let's say you got a $50,000 whole life policy, you borrow 5,000 against it, and let's say you didn't pay it back, right? Then that's just going to be upon the death benefit, right? So it's just gonna it'll carry over. You don't have to pay it back, but of course we're gonna encourage you to pay it back because obviously you got the 50,000 for a reason. But people do get whole life policies because of, again, the tax advantages or the borrowing aspect from it and leveraging it, right? So whole life insurance, I don't know about all whole life insurance, but I'm aware of our products and services. Of our whole life products grows at a fixed 4% rate. So that's the money that we advise people that they can borrow from, or leverage from, or cash out all as a living benefit. And never one. And then we had another question. So did I? Okay.
Dollars that you have to pay back. You're gonna have to pay back more.
Mhm.
And it was a hard lesson for me to learn. And like I said, as a younger person, I was like, wait, I only borrowed this amount of money, but why I gotta pay back all of this money?
Mhm.
So it's important for everyone to know exactly what you're getting into.
Right, right. So definitely, to put everything that I'm bringing up, whenever you sit down with an agent, bring all of that up. They gonna try to hire you. All right.
Good morning. My name is Lakendra.
Good
You piqued my interest because I'm a military spouse. So obviously there comes with life insurance with that. My husband does have a policy on us. But at the first of the year, we chose to invest privately for life insurance. And I just wanted some clarity because they mainly talked about the term life insurance. They didn't tell us about whole life. So are you stating that, because we're in our early 30s, so should we also have a whole life policy along with the term life, or did they just point us in the wrong direction?
So they didn't point you in the wrong direction. They didn't point you in the wrong direction. They pretty much put was what they felt like was probably in the best interest for you all and where y'all stand, because at the end of the day, it's a benefit for both. Let's say, God forbid, if anybody was to lose his life within that term, it is going to pay out. So if you're believing in life insurance, I say absolutely get whole life, right? And it's best to get whole life now because that's when you're younger, right? So you get the bang for your buck. So with that being said, because we sit down with military vets as well, they got the BGLI, the SGLI, Texas Wood Act, all of those things, right? They get the flag folding, I think $1,000 buried. So that term, and I don't know too much about it. So just the term policy over time, let's say when they retire, it's a term like policy, so it works the same way, right? You still have to renew that policy at some point in time. It's going to continue to rise over time. So yes, if you're believing whole life, get whole. I mean, if you're believing in life insurance, get whole life. Mhm.
We're going to take one more
Okay,
question.
Gotcha.
Hi again, I'm Sandy. My question is, I have, I believe, whole life policies
Mhm.
for my family, um, and my sons. Um, I think we took it out when they were infants, and they're 21 now. So, my question is, why is the cash surrender value so much less than what we paid in for the past, let's say, 21 years?
For the past 21 years, right?
Yes.
Oh, one, because they were a child when getting that policy. So as far as the cash surrender value, like when you get the paid up option and things like that, some policies have a different, you know, percentage that they grow cash value at. So you gotta ask those questions when, um, you know, when you sit down with the life insurance agent, like what percent is my cash value growing at or accumulating? So that's me kind of going back to the index universal whole life. That mirrors the S&P 500, so it goes with the market. So it's an index, so it'll never drop, but it'll increase. Let's say sometimes it'll increase, 2%, sometimes it'll increase 8, 4, whatever. But so yeah, essentially that just varies on the amount of or whatever company you with. They say that they accumulate cash value. What percentage they accumulate that? So with that being said, Ms. Melanie, um, there's no such thing as like better life insurance companies. And I do want to advise you all with the Colonial Life and the Panhandle. I think those $2 policies for X amount of dollars. Like, yeah, it sounds cool, but you got to be reasonable. A lot of things you just have to be reasonable, right? You got the policy. You got a $2 policy. You got the policy for 20 years. You ain't even paid $2,000 into, uh, you know, $50,000, $100,000 policy. There's stipulations between that. So you got to read. You got to make sure you read the detail. And back to what I was saying, there's no such thing as better life insurance, right? There's just different. There's just different products. Okay, there's just different products, and everything is based off an actuary table, which means again age, and health. So thank you all again. Appreciate you, Miss Melanie, for inviting me out. And thank you.
Thank you, Adrian, for that information. And each of you that asked the question, I am part of that younger demographic. I'm 25 years old. Y'all were in here speaking a foreign language to me. So we truly appreciate you. We also wanted to give you a token of appreciation because we were also told that you drove in from Houston to be with us this morning. So if we could give him a special round of applause. Thank you, thank you. All righty, up next, we have Miss Shania Lambert. Miss Shania Lambert obtained her bachelor's degree cum laude from Prairie View A&M University in 2004 with a major in political science and a minor in criminal justice. She then obtained her Juris Doctor from Regent University School of Law in 2007. Ms. Lambert previously worked as an administrative law judge / hearing officer with the Texas Workforce Commission State Office of Appeals from 2008 until 2013, overseeing hearings and issuing appellate opinions on unemployment benefits cases. Ms. Lambert most recently practiced family law from 2013 until May of 2019 as an assistant attorney general with the Office of the Attorney General Child Support Division. Ms. Lambert brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to Jackson, Todd, and Lambert PLLC with a genuine desire to see people excel in their passion in areas of giftedness. At Jackson, Todd, and Lambert, they specialize in establishing and securing legacies through small business formation and estate planning. Shania is also a co-founder of Capital Moms, which is an organization that educates, empowers, and encourages mom entrepreneurs. She is also the host of Rooted, Real People, Real Issues, Real Growth, which is a Christian podcast that focuses on growth spiritually, relationally, and emotionally. Rooted has now expanded into coaching, where Shanae will offer one-on-one and group coaching services in the areas of leadership development, growth mindset, emotional, relational, and spiritual intelligence. So please help me give a warm welcome to Miss Shanae Lambert.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Shorter. So it is such a pleasure to be here with you all today. I've had the opportunity to speak at this workshop a couple of times in the past, but it was virtual. And so this is my very first time being able to be here present with you in the room. So it's such a pleasure to be able to see your beautiful faces in person. So you heard a little bit about my bio. I never give like a lengthy bio in order to like hype myself up, because all that means I've accumulated a lot of debt, right, from going to school for all of these years. But I say all of that because I know what it's like to be a woman who has obtained some accomplishments, who has built something that I want to last and that I want to pass on to my son, who is my legacy. And so the only thing that wasn't mentioned though is I did also write a bestseller book on Amazon called Capital Moms, a firm foundation for all season mompreneurs. Thank you. So me and my business partner, Ebony Todd, who's currently stationed with her husband in Germany, we are co-founders of our own law firm here in Central Texas, but we also are co-founders for Capital Moms. So you'll see us tied together often. She would normally be here presenting with me and be my right hand, but she's not. So I'm gonna do my very best to represent us well without her. So one of the common things that you're gonna hear me repeat over and over during this presentation is the word intentionality, right? Everything that we've heard about today is going to require and demand intention. None of these things are going to happen by osmosis. No one's going to come to your home and say, let me help you, protect you, right? You're going to have to do it yourself. Thank you. You're going to have to do it yourself. You're going to have to be super intentional about it. And as women, we are the ones that are primarily funding the marketplace right now. Women of color, we are gaining degrees and getting educated at higher levels than anyone else in the country. We are the ones that are holding down the home both inside and outside. And so the goal is that we would be empowered to also make estate planning decisions. If we are the ones building the legacy, it only makes sense we would also be the ones taking efforts to protect it. Am I right? So when it comes to being women, right, the ones who are holding the glue, holding people together, it's often deemed that like, oh, sweet sentiments and being nurturing and well wishes, that's wonderful. That's warranted, but that is not going to protect what you have worked so hard to build. So because I've spoken here a few times, some of what I say may sound a little repetitive, but a lot of it is going to bear repeating because it just is what it is, right? We have to know the basics. So I want to start by talking to you about what a will is, why you use it, what it will do for you. But then I want to flip it a little bit. I want to talk to you about other estate planning tools that you may never have heard of that will accomplish the same thing a will do with less money, less hassle, less time. Are you interested in that? Okay. So let's just start by defining a will. So a will is just a basic legal document that is going to outline what you want to happen with your stuff, your estate, all of the things that you have accumulated over time. And a will is going to primarily do four things. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to let you decide who you want your stuff to go to. We know those people to be beneficiaries, right? So when we talk about beneficiaries, one of the things that often comes to mind, especially in families of color, is that, oh, my everything will go to my kids, right? Everything will go to my kids. Am I saying to leave here and disinherit your children? No. What I am saying is that we're going to be intentional. Remember, I said I was going to keep repeating that word. That means making responsible, wise choices about who we are leaving things to. Often it's like, oh, I'll just split everything 50-50 with my kids. You may love your kids the same, but your kids are not the same. There are some that are more responsible. There are some that may have other challenges, mental health issues. It is not wise to say, because I have two kids, I'm just going to split my estate down the middle, right? We have to be intentional about this. You also don't have to give your kids anything. Again, I'm not saying not to, but you don't have to. I've had clients who have had to come in and disinherit children. There are various reasons for that, but those reasons were valid and they were intentional about making those decisions. They were also responsible enough to have those conversations with those children so that it's not after mom or dad dies and they're seeing that piece of paper held by the attorney and realizing, I didn't get anything, right? I didn't take anything home. And so one of the reasons why you might consider disinheriting a child, for example, in one case, I had a father who was terminal with cancer. His wife had already predeceased him, and during their lifetime, they had given a lot to one of the daughters, right? They've been funding her life. She's a little less responsible. They were paying rent, they were purchasing cars, cleaning up her financial mess. The other daughter had kind of excelled in her career. She never really needed anything, didn't ask for anything, and so they thought it fair that when they died, that the daughter who took during life got all she was going to get, right? And that the daughter who had not received would then get her portion. Also, they trusted she was going to be more responsible with what they left behind. Was that a difficult conversation for us to sit in my office and have? Absolutely. But it was important that that conversation be had, right? It's better that it be had, let it be uncomfortable, than after the fact, your family having to deal with the mess of you leaving something to someone that cannot steward it well, right? Also understand that you can leave your items to someone other than blood relatives. It can be a nonprofit, it could be a sorority, it could be an organization, it could be a cause. You don't have to give to individuals. There are options when it comes to who you're going to designate as your beneficiaries. So that's the first thing that a will is going to do. The second thing that you can do is designate a legal guardian if you have minor children. Because I also practice family law, and I don't like to say that because but it has its place and its purpose. I did it for a while, and so now I kind of take it on a case by case basis. But one thing that you have to understand is, especially my single moms who have children, just because you name someone as a guardian in your will does not overcome a legal finding of parentage. So if you are a single mom, you say, "Oh, I want my best friend," or "Oh, I want my mom," or "Oh, I want my cousin to take care of my kids when I pass." Do those children have a legal father? Someone sign a birth certificate, an acknowledgement of paternity, a court order, because your designation of guardianship does not overcome that, right? So it gives an indication of what you would like to happen. It does not determine what actually will happen, right? So that's important. Also, if you are married, most people will have mirror image wills, meaning if I die, kids go to my spouse, right? That's kind of understood. But what if you both die at the same time? So your will needs to also have a designation for if we decease at the same time, who's going to take care of our kids? I like to have it also as a caveat because spouses can decease within a short period of time. And so I think it's also important then that there just be that language in the event that it becomes applicable to know what's going to happen with your babies. The third thing that you can do is how is my property going to be distributed? So not just what or to who, but how. You can put certain designations. You want it to happen at a certain age. Do you want it to happen at a certain time? Is there going to be a triggering event when a minor child turns 18, graduates from college, gets married, turns 25, wants to buy their first house, whatever it may be? You can have triggering events to determine how you want your assets to be distributed. And then last but not least is appointing an executor who is going to administer this estate, who is going to take this will to the court and say, this is how my loved one or the decedent wanted their assets to be distributed. It's been mentioned before by our first presenter, very wisely so, that a lot of people will choose their eldest child. Your eldest child or the child you're closest with may not be emotionally available to take on this task. Now, a will doesn't have to be probated as soon as you die. You have 4 years during that period of time. However, we all know if you own a home, the payments are still due on. If there's cars, if there's debts to be, those things don't just go on pause until you go to court. Property taxes are due. Mortgage payments are due. So things have to be taken care of as soon as possible. Your eldest child or the one closest to you may not have the emotional capacity to do that right off the bat. So you have to be, again, intentional about who you're going to elect to be your executor. Are they organized? Are they steadfast? Do they have a sound mind? Are they going to be able to take on the responsibility of contacting an attorney, because you cannot probate in the state without an attorney? Are they going to know what to do? Are they going to show up to the hearings? Are they going to be able to access cash to be able to pay these fees up front that later could be reimbursed by the estate? Are you going to put a financial or emotional burden on someone that cannot handle it just because that's the person you feel closest to? We have to make more in-depth and wise decisions about the people that we're designating in our wills. Okay, so those are the 4 main things that a will is going to accomplish for you. So you might hear all that and say, well, why do I need one again? Like, what would be the point? And so it does help streamline the process. If you die without a will, in Texas it's called dying intestate, meaning the law is going to kind of go down a list and determine who gets what. That's still a lengthy process. You still have to go through probate, and you're leaving it up to a third party who does not know you, or know what you would want to make decisions about what you have worked so hard for. So a will is important kind of to me as a catch-all. Do I think we can make smarter estate planning decisions than just having a will? Absolutely. Should you have one? Absolutely. The other tools I'm going to talk about will work in conjunction with a will, which a will kind of acts as a safety net. So if anything doesn't fall into one of these other devices, you still have designated what you want to happen to your assets. Does that make sense? And so another reason, obviously, to have a will is to try to help reduce the stress at the time of your passing. Because when you pass and you have not laid out what you want to happen with yourself, everybody knows what mama would have wanted, right? Everybody has an opinion on what she would have wanted. And somehow it always tends to benefit them, right? And so this helps to make it very clear about what you want. I do advise having those conversations with your family about what you want in advance. Set very clear and enforceable boundaries. This isn't up for discussion or debate. I'm just letting you know the what and the why, right? This is not a chance for you to change my mind. But it does give you a chance to take that peek versus the other family members who are left behind who are wondering, well, why this and why that? And how do we really know? Let's make it clear for them. So I have 6 other tools that you can use as estate planning devices that will accomplish much of what a will does, but with less hassle and will help you avoid the probate process. What is probate? That's again when you take the will to the court and say, this is what they wanted to happen with their stuff. Even in best case scenarios, it is a lengthy process. It is a lengthy process because you have to contact all the creditors, pay off any debts, do an inventory of all the assets, and then make sure everything's getting distributed. Best case scenario, 6 months. It could go on years. Okay, and that's with a will. That's what everyone tells you to have, right? Have a will. That's with a will. So what are some things we can use that will avoid that whole process? A living trust. That's number 1, a living trust. A living trust is going to allow you to deposit assets into a trust via a trust document, much like a will, that says what you're putting in the trust and who you intend for it to go to. That living trust is managed by you while you're alive, and then you appoint a successor trustee who will manage it after you go. So you can put homes in there, bank accounts, cars, personal items, anything you want can go into a trust. You transfer title of ownership from you to the trust. That way, when you pass, those titles pass automatically to the beneficiary without anyone having to go to court and without any probate. So if you have a home that you want to go to a family member, but you don't want it stuck in court for a year and a half, put it in a trust. You got bank accounts, there's some other options, but you can put them in a trust. You have specific heirlooms or items that matter to you that there's title on, put them in the trust. And those things will all pass to the beneficiaries without anyone having to step foot into a courtroom. Okay, so the second option is going to be what's called joint ownership. And in Texas, that really falls under 2 categories. You're going to have your joint tenancy agreement. So let's say you're single and you live with someone, but y'all aren't married, but you do own that home together. If you pass, you want that property to go to that other person without them having to go to court, then you need a joint tenancy agreement. Do not assume, because you're both owners on the deed or the mortgage documents, that there's a joint tenancy agreement. That person may very well still have to go to court to get that property or to prove ownership of that property. It doesn't matter that their name is on the deed. The other thing, if you're married, survivorship community property agreement. Texas is a community property state. So we assume that means if I pass, everything's going to go to me as a spouse. You still have to go through the probate process. If you have a survivorship community property agreement, that's going to pass to you automatically, avoiding the probate process, right? So same outcome, but less money, less time, right? So you have a living trust, and then you have joint occupancy or ownership agreements. Next is going to be a payable on death designation. If you have a bank account, you can name someone as a payable on death designee. This is different from joint ownership on an account. They don't have any access to the funds. You manage that money however you want to. In the event there's anything in that account when you pass, then it goes to that person. So there's no obligation on you to maintain a certain amount in that account, nor do they have any ownership or access to that money while you're alive. But if there's anything in it, when you pass, the bank automatically gives them that money. Again, avoiding probate, avoiding that whole process. The fourth is one of my favorite, one of the often least talked about, a transfer on death deed. Do you own a home? Do you own land? You want to give to someone else? Let's assume it's not your spouse, someone else, and you don't want them to have to go through probate. A transfer on death deed is 2 pages. It's so simple. You designate, I'm the owner. I own this land at this legal residence. I want to give it to this person. You file it in the county clerk's office where your deed is held. When you pass, they bring your death certificate to the county. The county gives them the deed. It's that simple. No probate, no attorney, no court. Number 5 is going to be something the DMV does. If you have a vehicle, want to give it to someone, you don't want to put it in your will, you don't want to go through that probate process, there's 2 documents you fill out at the DMV that will transfer title. When you pass, they present your death certificate to the DMV. DMV gives them title to that vehicle. That's simple. No court, no attorneys, no paper, probate process. Last but not least, and this is not the most effective way, but it is a way. If you currently own something that you don't use like in your daily life, but you know you want to give it to a certain person, just go ahead and gift it now. Just gift it while you're alive. Now, you want to be careful about tax implications depending on the value of that gift, but that is another option that, again, will avoid the probate process and questions about what you would have wanted to have happen because you've already given it, right? You've already bequeathed it before you've passed. So again, should you have a will? Absolutely. But are there some other tools you can use in conjunction with having a will that will accomplish the same thing and save time, money, and expense, both financially and emotionally? Absolutely. What questions do you have for me? Yes, ma'am. Mhm. For the transfer on death deed? So no, you retain full ownership of your home while you're alive. You're responsible for taxes, mortgage, etc. Just at the time of your death, they obtain ownership. So then at that point, they would be responsible for any mortgage payments and taxes. Mhm.
My name's Kendra. My question is, I am in my early mid-30s, but what age do you feel like is a good age to start looking into getting a will
No.
and the trust and all that?
No, yeah. Now is the best time because none of us know, right? The day nor the hour. If you have anything you believe to be of value, now is the time.
Good morning. My name is Crystal. I went to Prairie View too, so I kind of cheated when we went there. Okay, are these documents the same in every state? Because I have a cousin, she's much older, but she doesn't have any children, and she just made me a beneficiary, and I have to go. She sent me to the bank to sign all these different things. But I haven't heard about some of these documents, and I just want to know if I need to call her and say, hey, did you? And so I don't know,
Yeah.
but she lives in California,
Okay.
so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, so different state laws are going to apply. So she's definitely going to want to consult with an attorney in her state. Normally, every state has reciprocal options, but they're titled differently. And sometimes the way they need to be notarized or witnessed changes a little bit. But all of the options are available. They're probably just titled differently. I would have her talk to an attorney in California for sure.
Good morning. We're still in the morning. I'm Judge James. Just on the side of the JP side, it's very, very important for individuals to ensure you have things in writing, because that's one of the biggest issues that we have when we are preparing the death certificates for families. And as counsel alluded to, don't just assume things. And common law relationships, that's one of our biggest concerns. People come to our offices. I understand. We sympathize with you. We really, really do. Unfortunately, if it's not in writing, and I'm not saying this to be negative, you don't have that ring, there really is a lot of things you don't get. And yelling at us, it doesn't help, because we can only do so much, and something in writing is what we need as the justice of the peace in order to expedite these things for the families. And on that note as well, these things are not done expeditiously.
Mhm.
And that's primarily because if we need medical records from our wonderful VA, it takes time. And we can only put so much information on the death certificates once we receive the applicable documents that we have asked for multiple times after individuals have passed. I know I said a lot. One more, I think the lady that spoke earlier, I wanted to mention, you made joke of it by saying pinning a document to let someone know what's going on. Honestly, that's a good practice, or have documents in the house. Because when we are on scene and we're pronouncing individuals deceased, the more info that we have, the better. So if we know that someone has a slew of medical issues, we can make a decision quicker than ordering an autopsy or a blood draw to decide the outcome, the outcome of how the individual passed. Documentation, 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 please. Thank you.
Absolutely. And as a quick aside or follow-up to that, whoever you're appointing as your beneficiaries, especially your executor, et cetera, whoever you're giving your medical power of attorney to, make sure they have a copy of it. Make sure that it's in a safe place where people know. This is just, when it comes to appointing executors, some people are funny, like, oh, well, I don't want them to have that info. Then that's not the person that you trust to be the executor, right? Because I say, okay, make sure they have the passwords to your account, make sure they have your social, make sure they have, they're like, oh, I don't want them to have that, then that's not the person that you want to be the executive of your estate. Go ahead.
Good morning.
morning.
My name is Della Parks. I have a question. One of the tools you mentioned with the DMV, could you repeat that? And I have
Yes,
one more
ma'am.
question after
Yeah,
that.
so it's a transfer of motor vehicle. And so there's two documents. If you go on the DMV website, through the various drop downs, you can find, I think they even have a little search tool. But there's just two forms that they have on their website that you fill out that are pretty self-explanatory with instructions that you then complete and file with them. And then that way, when you pass, that vehicle will be handled through them and they'll go ahead and transfer title.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the information. It's been very helpful. I have one more question, if that's okay. Can you expound on the living trust? I know I'm in the process of kind of setting that up for my family. I think I've spoken to you on the phone because I lost my father this year.
Yes, ma'am.
But where do we go to establish, to get the living trust set up for our families?
Yeah, so you can consult with an attorney. If you guys want to consult with me, I do free 30-minute consults. If it's your initial consult with me, and I'll have business cards after. And so we can discuss the type of trust, because that's going to vary whether it's revocable or irrevocable, and the type of assets. But everyone wonders, like, well, where is the trust? Like, where is it? It's much like a will. It's a piece of paper. It's a document that states what's going to be transferred. So one of the reasons why trusts are preferred is, unlike a will, trusts are kept private. So you don't file it with the court. You don't go to court. No one knows what's in that trust except for you as a settlor and the trustee. So it's one of those things where how you designate your assets is also kept private. So it's something that we recommend that you keep with yourself, and a document that you keep with the person that you're going to appoint as your successor trustee when you pass. But then how you fund that trust, how you transfer ownership, will be dependent upon the asset. So if we were to consult, we would talk about what's the list of assets you want to put in here, and each one may have a different method for how we're going to fund that.
Good morning, Leah Smollett. I have a question. When there's no will, no trust, what is the affidavit of heirship? How do that play in?
Oh gosh, why can't you do that to me? So there are two other tools. If you die intestate with no will, then two other tools that people will use will be an affidavit of heirship or a small estate affidavit. So to start with the small estate affidavit, you're basically saying to the court, I want you to administer this estate however the person that has died, they may own a home, but everything else they own is valued at less than $75,000. And the debt that they owe is less than the amount of assets that they have. If you meet all of those requirements, then the court will still process the estate. It'll go through the probate process, but it'll be a little bit quicker because there's less to do. An affidavit of heirship basically states there's no will in place, and all of the named heirs that are known have all signed this document saying we're in agreement on how what was left is going to be distributed. So it can be quick if there's few heirs and everyone's in agreement. It's impossible if everyone's spread out. You got half brothers and half sisters over here, and no one's in agreement, no one's in communication, because you are testifying to that these are all of the known heirs. and then the court will administer the estate. So those are two tools you can use if there is no will, but for us here today, we're all gonna at least have what? A will, absolutely. Oh, then have you work for it. Oh.
Hi, good morning. My name is Lawana. I've seen you speak before on the virtual conferences too. So I have a question. I have two children. I have one son who has special needs. He's on the autism spectrum. And so he just turned 17. So I have a question about guardianship because I kind of think it all ties together with like the living trust, like how I want that to go about. And in the state of Texas is guardianship yearly that you go to court to, because he has some emerging skills and he may not always need me to be his guardian, but in 10 months, he's gonna turn 18. I don't think he's gonna be ready for that.
Yeah. So when it comes to guardianship, that's perfect timing. So I'm bringing on one, possibly two attorneys in the next month that will be handling estate planning and guardianship. You'll have someone that specializes in those areas. But guardianship is really individualized. It'll depend on the medical diagnosis by the doctor. There may be certain times that you'll have to go to court and kind of report to the court about what's happening, providing medical records for them to assess. And that's really a protection for the person who's being appointed a guardian over to make sure, because in your case, obviously, you're going to act in the best interest of your son. But sometimes the guardian is appointed that's not acting in the best interest of the person. So there are check-ins and adjustments can be made as you go along. Is that all right? All right, guys. So afterwards, like I said, I'll have business cards and then we can set up free consults if you would like. Thank you.
We are in the season of giving. So we would like to give you a token of appreciation. We really appreciate you for coming out and giving such a plethora of information. So please utilize her services. Please go see her. There were some great questions here today. So we'll get our picture quick.
Okay, we have one more speaker. And if you will allow me the personal privilege, I have to give a personal testimony before our speaker comes up. I heard her speak 6, 7, 9, 10 years ago. And from the presentation, I utilized her services. My sorority sisters and my church members know that I'm an only child. And so after I heard the presentation, I took my parents, I made them go, and we did our pre-planning for our funerals. Even my funeral is planned down to the flower, my casket, my program, everything. We set that up not knowing that we would need it in the relative near future. My father was diagnosed with terminal cancer in 2019, and we had to utilize this service. But when I tell you it is a blessing where you can just walk into the funeral home, they had his folder. They said, "Miss Jones, is there anything you would like to change? This is what your dad said." No. And we were done, we walked out. Funeral was planned. And so not only that, it's less stress, but when you have those other family members who come out of the woodworks and want to change things, when they were not there, you can say, well, my daddy said he wanted this. So it is such a blessing. I hope you all take what this information to heart and utilize it for your own selves. So without further ado, that's my personal testimony. Brenda Taylor is the pre-need specialist and currently the assistant is a specialist and is currently the assistant home pre-need department. With over 9 years of compassionate service in the funeral industry, she's gained a deep understanding of the intricacies involved in planning for life's inevitable moments. Her commitment to professionalism and empathy is at the core of her service. When she is not helping clients with their pre-arrangements, you can find her enjoying time with her family and volunteering in her community. Mrs. Brenda Taylor was born one of 6 children in Louisville, Kentucky. As a Navy brat, she grew up mostly in Virginia and California. Mrs. Taylor moved to Texas in 1987 by way of the military. She and her husband have been married for 43 years. Together, they share 6 children, 12 grandchildren, and 2 great grandchildren. Brenda says before coming to Chisholm's, she had no desire to work in a funeral home, but she recognized this to be an assignment of what she has been called to do. Brenda has a passion for what she does and wants everyone to know the importance of planning their funeral in advance. When planning a funeral and purchasing it before you need it, it is like putting it on layaway, locking in today's price while relieving the financial and emotional burden from what your loved ones at the time needed. It's like giving your family the last best gift. At this time, Mrs. Brenda Taylor.
Ooh, I don't know about y'all, but I'm full. You know, I ain't full of food because I ain't ate anything. But this has been so good. I mean, so informative. Just so blessed by everyone that has come up here and shared. And thank you so much, Miss Melanie, for sharing that. What a blessing. I love it. We love it when people do that because you get to see, you know, personally how the experience took place and what it did. And we hear that multiple times, all the time. We get to hear that all the time from families, the difference that it makes. So anyway, first of all, I just want to say thank you again, Melanie Jones, for inviting us out and to allow us to come here and share this most valuable information. We are so thankful and so grateful. And then also, we would like to just, for those who know the Chisholms, we'd like to say hello from the Chisholms. They're always so elated when we get to come places to share this important information because we all know how valuable it is. And then also, I'd like to, before I begin, acknowledge our pre-need team. Okay, of course, again, my name is Brenda Taylor. Been with Chisholm's a little over 9 years, going on 10, and love what I do. You done heard all of that. Okay, moving on. And then right here is Miss Deidre Kroll. She's been with us for about, show her some love. She's been with us for about 3 years. What a blessing! What a blessing, truly. And Miss Venus Gilchrist Harold sitting right over here as well. Babe, Venus, so thankful for the completion of our team and God bringing them, because truly, when there's truly something I do say, that God gives us people for our life. And truly, our team is the better for him bringing these 2 in there. And then also, I want to also acknowledge Mr. David Reed. And y'all may know Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed's been around a long time. He's been a part of our family, I think since about 2003. He wasn't able to be here today. Okay, so we thank God for him as well. And then also, he didn't know I was going to do this because I didn't know exactly whether he's going to make it or not. But we also have one of our funeral directors present, Mr. Marvin Williams. He's sitting in the back. Just wave at us, please. Yes, always so thankful. It's a blessing. Praise God. So we're going to go forward now. All right, here we go. So now I want to just make this statement. Now, this statement I'm getting ready to make, you've either heard it by way of song or you've heard it said. Okay? And it goes like this. As long as you got King Jesus, you don't need nobody else. But guess what? One day you're going to need the funeral director to come and pick your body up from the place of death and bring him to the funeral home. And then after that, guess what's going to happen? The funeral director is going to call your family members to talk to them about coming in and doing your arrangements. And when they come in, they're going to sit down. They're going to go over all kinds of paperwork. They're going to have to sign millions of copies. Maybe not that many, but you get my point. And then after that, what's going to happen? Now you got to choose, what would mama want? What would daddy want? You don't know. Would they want cremation? Would they want to be buried? What would they want? And then after we get that down, now we got to pick out their casket. Now we got to go through the order of service. Now we got to talk about the ins and outs, of everything that is needed. And it is a lot. It is a whole lot of those decisions and the stress and strains that we put on our family to have to do that, right? But guess what? The final thing that we're going to be asked, how is this going to be paid for? How are you paying for this? Because guess what? Funeral services, whatever it may be, has to be paid 72 hours prior to providing. Isn't that something? So today we are talking about advanced funeral planning. I wanted to paint that picture for you because guess what? Not all hope is lost. And everything that I just shared, painting that picture of what it looks like when you don't have your plan done. You don't have everything finished. You haven't sat down and shared with your wishes, with the pre-need agent, doing your advanced funeral plan, being able to lock that price in, right? But guess what? You can still do that. That's something that prevents everything I just shared with you. It prevents it. Just like Sister Melanie Jones was just saying, it makes it so much easier. Did you hear what she said? She came in, they asked her, do we want to leave it like the way Dad said it? Yes, we do. She signed a few paperwork, and guess what? It's done. Everything taken care of financially, everything paid for. Now, we're going to talk just a little bit about what advanced funeral planning does. One of the first things it does is it gives peace of mind. And how does that? Again, by getting your plan done ahead of time. It gives peace of mind. We hear it all the time. People come in, they sit down to do their plans, and when they leave from us after going through everything, they share with us, guess what? That was so easy. You made that so easy. That was so peaceful. Now I can leave here. I'm leaving here in peace, knowing that when I leave, that financial burden, all the stress and strain of having to pick everything out is not on my family because I chose it all and I took care of it. Okay. Another thing is that it helps prevent family arguments, excuse me. I'm gonna get a drink of water because my mouth is dry. After talking about King Jesus, I gotta get some water, okay? Excuse me a minute. Sticking together. We gotta get this information out. Okay, so again, it helps against the family disagreements and the arguments. And what happens? What happens with that? Well, a lot of times it goes like this. Well, you know what? You know what? You wouldn't have known what mama wants. You haven't talked to mama in years. They're arguing over the casket. They're arguing over the disposition as far as where they're going to be buried, where they're going to be cremated. They're arguing on the clothes. They're arguing over it's so many things. And there's truly, this is truth. When it comes to this time, it's either going to bring out the best in the family or a lot of times the worst. Right? And that's one thing advanced funeral planning can avoid. It avoids it. Right? So the other thing too, again, you got to pick out flowers. Well, there may be that kind of going on in there with that too. All the stresses that we can avoid, right? That our families, that we can make sure that our families get to avoid by making sure we get it done ahead of time. And I know it's stuff we don't like to talk about. Our family don't like to talk about it. We don't want to talk about it. But guess what? One day, we're going to talk about it. So it may as well be ahead of time. Ahead of time, just like what you was talking about, wheels. Ahead of time. Get it done while you yet can so that pressure is not on your families. And then, well, I'll just give you this quick testimony as well. I did a plan on my dad back in 2003. And that was one reason why I did it. When Dad died, I didn't want no trouble from my siblings, right? And I didn't want Mom to have to be concerned about it either financially. So when I got it done, Dad passed away 2.5 years later. All right. The company that we do our plans through, Homesteaders Life Company, the plan that I had, they ended up paying the balance completely off. We still owed $6,000 at that time, right? And Homesteaders just wiped it out. And then here comes my siblings. Brian, we got to go to the funeral home and make arrangements for Dad. I was like, no, we don't. Why not? Because it's done. Do you know what peaceful that was? That was so peaceful. And so it prevents, again, all of those things that we don't want to see happen. I know as parents, that's the last thing we want to think about is our family members sitting there fussing and fighting over it. And it can get quite ugly. Trust me, it can get quite ugly. Yeah.
It can. Okay, the next thing would be it allows you to plan out your tribute and how you want it. Okay? Because you know what? I share with people, look, do you want to be cremated? Oh no. I don't want to be burnt up. I want to be buried. I'm like, okay, guess what? You get your plan done. Because if you don't have it done, when your loved ones come in, they can do whatever. And guess what? Because especially our economy today and just cost, most people are going to go towards that cremation. But if you're very adamant you do not want that, then go ahead and get it done ahead of time. Because what happens is once you get your plan in place, you start making payments on it. One thing it does is it locks the price in, which means once you get it done, if you live another 50 years, your family will not pay another dime from what was paid 50 years prior to in that plan, right? And then also it keeps your family from having that stress of trying to decide what you wanted. And that's a heavy burden on them sometimes because they don't know. But it gives you that peace of mind that what you wanted, how you want it, right? You may want a lavish funeral. You may want your tribute to be, I mean, trumpets blowing and all that, right? Whatever you would want. Because it's your thing. Do what you want to do, right? That's why I say, because that's what I tell people. Do it how you want to do it. In fact, one of my good friends, she had shared with me what she wants. And I mean, she wants it lavished. Do you hear me? The nice quality casket, or expensive casket, however you want to say it. She wants the ins and outs. She done shared it all. She's got 2 sons, and she had talked to her sons about it. They said, Mom, we're not doing that. Mom, we're getting the cheapest casket. We're not doing all that, Mom. I'm telling you right now, we're not gonna do it. So guess what? Her plan is done. Because why? She's not taking that chance. Because she knows what is important to her and how she wants to be remembered, how she wants to be celebrated during that time. Okay? So that is a blessing by itself. And then the other thing is, it saves money. It saves money. Because you look at inflation, you look at all those things going down the road, right? Because what? Funerals typically are going up anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 every 10 years. Think about that. That's why when some people come in, even to share with us their life insurance policies, and they only have $10,000, even $20,000 for their coverage. And I'm not saying that's bad, but that's what I'm saying. And they choose a $10,000, $11,000, $12 funeral. We let them know, look, this is not going to cover it. Because by the time, if you were to live another 20, 30, 40, 50 years, it's going to exceed this, right? But that's the benefit of doing an advanced funeral plan, because it locks that price in and doesn't let it go up anymore. Okay? And, like I was talking about, there's emotional overspending, but that cuts all that out. That's another way of saving. And like I was saying, it offsets the effects of inflation. And keep it in mind that services have to be paid for 72 hours in advance prior to the service being done. Okay, so what I will say is that what we always say is this is literally like giving your loved ones their last best gift. So you know what we say? Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. In fact, we have back in the fellowship hall back there, we have a sign up sheet where we can get your name and your number, and we can call you and make an appointment for you to get more information, and for you just to come in and see how simple it is to go ahead and do your advanced funeral plan. So we'll be back there. Miss Venus Gilchrist Harold, she'll be standing back there to get that information from you as well. And yeah, we just want to say thank you so much for taking out your time to come hear this valuable information. This is what we say. This is the call to action. We done heard a lot of information today, right? A lot of information, a lot of good information. I'm thankful and grateful. So this is the call to action. So is there anybody that's got any questions?
you just scared me with the 72-hour. So if you have a family member, and you are the beneficiary of their life insurance, how does that work? Do you call the insurance company like, hey, so and so passed, I need this money now? How does that work?
Yeah. Well, actually, what we do, ma'am, is when a family member passes away, the family comes in and they let us know they have the life insurance policy, they had life insurance, then we call the life insurance company because what we need to do, first of all, is validate that it's good, everything's enforced, it's the right kind of life insurance, right? Because unfortunately, we have seen where people thought they had life insurance and they actually had accidental death and the person didn't die from a death. They died of natural causes. It can't be used. Okay. But all things being equal, let's say it's good. Everything's good with it. Most funeral homes use a funding company to get the money out of the life insurance policy, only the amount for the services that will be needed, right? And so as long as we can do that, then we're good. Even though we may not physically have it right then and there, but we're good because we know that money is coming. Does that make sense? Yeah, and that's why we do it because most life insurance policies, they do not pay out until like 30 days or longer. But most funeral companies do use most funeral homes do use a funding company to be able to accommodate the families like that. Okay.
It's me again.
Yes, me again.
Just a side note of why it's important as well, in reference to the advance of funeral planning. On the side again, with the JPs and for families, JPs meaning Justice of the Peace, when we're out on scene, it does help to know if your family has a funeral home already selected. Reason being, a lot of individuals are unaware that the bodies go to Central Texas Mortuary. We have two JPs here. We do not have a DI, a death investigator. We don't have a designated one. Hi, we wear those hats. Myself and Judge Johnson. So when we're out there, we are the coroner, our hat shift. We move the JP's hat, and then sometimes we end up the chaplain as well. So there are a lot of things that we're doing, and we're not being insensitive or prying. But if we know that you have a funeral home, instead of sending your loved ones to Central Texas Mortuary, that funeral home can be contacted and the individual picked up right then and there. Because when they go to the mortuary, we don't know how long they'll sit there. Once they get to the funeral home, why does my family member look not themselves, regardless that they have passed? Because they're sitting there and they don't have the capacity to necessarily hold family members for X amount of time. So it is good to know who the funeral home you have when we arrive on scene, so we can share the information and move along with the process and get in touch with the funeral services as well. Hint, hint, and process your death certificate in a timely manner. 2 JPs to handle over 200,000 people. We have 6 JPs, we only have 2 here. So just keep those things in mind as well. But having a funeral home, advanced planning ahead of time is important. Okay?
Thank you so much. That was really, really good. That was really good. And just to speak to that a minute, is that even when you do your advanced funeral plan, make sure your family knows. Let them know that you did it, who you did it with, and that this is who will, of course, be taking care of everything. And of course, you would take and put that information, their policy, their packet somewhere, put it somewhere where your friends and your family members will know where it's at. But that was really good. Thank you so much for sharing with that. Very important. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Smollett again. The other thing with the advanced planning, when I did my advanced planning, is I want to go back to Alabama. And that was already set up in my planning that you all was able to make that arrangement. My son don't have to worry about that. It's already completed.
So good. So good. Thank you so much. And even speaking to that, That is so true. Sometimes people live here and what they want to do is they want to go somewhere else to be buried, to back to their hometown, back to wherever it may be, right? And so in that we are able to do that and get all of those plans together as well. The other thing I'll share real quick, you can even transfer your policy. Sometimes we have policies with other funeral homes, and it may be out of state. May have it, and then people move here and they got it with them. And what do I do? Well, you can certainly come um, and we will transfer. They are transferable and go from one to the next. And then you're here. You do your advanced funeral plan. Decide to move to another state. Guess what? It transfers with you to another funeral home. Okay. So that's one thing about them. They are transferable. Yes, ma'am. How you doing, Miss Brenda? See you.
Good morning. I'm Brenda Wesley. I'm not promoting the funeral home, but I was able to pay like $105 a month. You don't have to get up off that 6,000 or 10,000 in money back. And when it was paid for, I said, oh, thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah.
Yes.
Amen.
That's good. And you're and the good thing about it is too, Miss Brenda, that your price is locked in. Family will not have to pay no more.
Morning, everyone, again. Just like Miss Brenda said, it's so important. And Chisholm has been, y'all are in my heart because y'all took care of my son. Christmas. And we didn't have any problems of the fighting with my other children because we knew what my son needed. So Chisholm, I love you guys.
Thank you
And
so
I'll be
much.
doing mine and my love and my family.
Thank you.
But thanks for doing.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. Thank you so much. A blessing. There's one other thing. Oh, you go ahead. And I'll mention it.
I don't have a question, but I just finalized my pre-planning with Ms. Fitness this week. First came out.
Wonderful.
But with this additional information, it's gonna help me get everything in order. So I really appreciate the
Yes,
information.
and that's good. And that's good with that because even when she's talking about additional information, we do share when people come in to do advanced funeral plan. Go ahead and get your obituary done. Write it. You know you better than anybody else. Go ahead and bring your picture in. Your picture that you want to put on your program, you want on whatever, and in the obituary, in the paper, on our website, bring your pictures in because you have control over that. And that's a good thing because you don't choose your picture. Who knows what's going to look like the one they put on there? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know, but that is a thought that you can get all those things done. And then also the thing I want to mention before we end is about veterans. Is there anybody a veteran in here? You done served your time. Thank you all so much for your service. I just want to just talk about that real quick. We do also have some information back on the table concerning veterans as well, but that's a blessing. You can utilize the veteran cemetery, whether you want to be cremated and put into a niche or whether you want to be buried there. And there's no cost to the veteran. And that's a blessing. And look, you save it. If you're doing a burial, you're saving like $3,000 or $4,000 for what all it includes. Because if you go out, you got to be buried at Clean City Cemetery, it's $1,000 for a plot. And then it's $1,275 to open and close the hole, digging the hole, closing it up. And then not to talk about your headstone. And then if you wanted a vault, there's just so many things entailed in that, but it's a blessing. It's a blessing to be able to utilize the benefit that you've been given. So just remember you can do that as well. Anybody else have any questions? Miss Brenda.
I don't have a question, but I promised Chisholm that I would be forever their marketing, the marketing director. Lloyd died on
It was a Monday.
a Monday. We had made his arrangements on the Friday before. But I will tell you that over the years, as some of you have, I've observed Chisholm and the way they do business in comparison to others in our community. They're always professional. And I met with their staff at weeks later, just to say, I chose them. I had options. I always have options. Anywhere I want it from, I can make that happen. But I chose them. I met Brenda probably 10 years ago. and she did a presentation at our church. And uh, I went home, and she did another one just a few months ago. And I went home and I told Lloyd, I said, you know, we really need to get this done. It's the greatest gift you can give your family. So we went there. We laughed and talked and prepared it, and then he died on Monday. So I'm grateful for Chisholm and their professionalism and a caring spirit. I didn't feel pressure. I was told what the options were, and I chose. And I didn't have to make a lot of changes because Lloyd was with me when we made the arrangements, which gave me a tremendous amount of peace that I was doing exactly what he wanted. And Lloyd will be buried in Arlington, the National Cemetery. Those arrangements we just made. And the individual that I worked with, Chris, he was amazing. I knew that walking into the church was going to be my breaking point on the day of the funeral. But he was, you don't even know this. He came up, he walked with me. I was alone. He walked with me. And he said to me, I'm here with you now. I'm always going to be with you through this entire service. Lean on me if you need to. You know, he's just, it was always there. Anything I needed, they questions I had, because I've never walked this journey before. So they were always there. Came to visit me in my home. They talked to me. They were always available through this whole process. So I will be forever. I have to honor what commitment I made. I will be forever their free marketing director.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Cody. That was a blessing. It was an honor, truly, 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 truly. And we're always going to be there still. Yes, that's how we are. And that's one thing we do share. Once it's over, it don't mean our relationship ends. We're always there. If you ever have any questions, need anything, a lot of times there's paperwork that needs to be done, especially with a veteran and the surviving spouse. She don't know where to begin, but there's a lot of things, benefits that she may be eligible for. And we certainly help out with all of those things too. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Is that it? Do we have anything else? All right. Well, thank you all so much for your time. It's been our pleasure.
Yes, so yes, we do have a gift for you as well. Thank you for coming and sharing your information and your knowledge. It is valuable information that we need to start thinking about now while we're living. Thank you. So 2 announcements. All of our presenters today, as soon as we're finished, we'll have 3 announcements, sorry. All of our presenters will be in the fellowship hall for you to speak to individually, ask them questions, get their contact information, give them your contact information, so you can set up meetings after this to discuss whatever you learned today. We did ask the presenters not to sell in the presentation, but to be available to answer your questions afterwards. The second announcement that I have is today also going on is the Natural Hair and Health Expo, the 12th Annual Armed Forces Natural Hair and Health Expo, which is at the Killeen Civic and Conference Center. It's going on right now until 6 p.m. I have some tickets, free tickets. So if you want to go, please see me and you can go. The last question. Okay, she raised her hand. She's like, let me go. The last thing that I have is for all members of Alpha Kappa Alpha to please stay inside the sanctuary for just a moment before you go out. We have some refreshments. Please go into the fellowship hall to speak with our presenters. If there's nothing else, that is all that we have for you today. Thank you all so much for coming out. We hope you learned something and picked up some valuable information today.
And I'm gonna get your card so I can get that book. I need to get that book. Yes, thank you.
And the office number is the best way to reach me on my email. That's my direct